the chaos of World War I, with bullets flying overhead and the ground trembling from shell fire, soldiers developed countless survival habits. Some were born of necessity, others were born of pure ingenuity. But one particular practice still puzzles historians and fascinates enthusiasts today. Why did World War I soldiers place spoons in their boots? It might sound odd. After all, what does a simple spoon have to do with surviving in the trenches? Yet this tiny object offers a remarkable glimpse into the creativity, discipline, and desperation of men who lived knee-deep in mud for months. In this video, we'll explore the surprising story behind this strange practice, separating myth from fact and revealing what this single habit tells us about life and survival during World War I. The harsh reality of trench life. Imagine standing for hours in freezing mud. Your boots are soaked, your socks are damp, the smell of gunpowder and rot fills the air. You sleep sitting up, eat cold food, and live side by side with lice and rats. Every soldier carried roughly 60 pounds of gear: a rifle, ammunition, rations, a water bottle, mess tins, a bayonet, and a small collection of personal items. But space was precious, and soldiers quickly learned that every single item had to serve multiple purposes. The British, French, and German armies all issued basic cutlery, usually a tin or steel spoon, sometimes stamped with the soldier's number or regiment. Why? Because in the trenches, a spoon wasn't just for eating, it was a lifeline. The mysterious spoon in the boot. So, where does the story of spoons in boots come from? Collectors, historians, and veterans' descendants have shared countless anecdotes about this unusual habit. On the Great War Forum, one of the largest online communities of World War I historians, several contributors recalled veterans describing how they tucked their spoons into their leg wrappings or boots. One user even recalled his grandfather's words: "You never wanted to lose your spoon. If you did, you didn't eat." Another wrote that many soldiers ground down the sides of their spoons to fit perfectly into the corners of their mess tins, showing just how personal and practical these tools became. Others point out that spoons recovered from battlefields were often engraved with soldiers' initials or regimental numbers. In one tragic case, a fallen soldier was identified only by his spoon. So while official army manuals never instructed soldiers to keep their spoons in their boots, personal testimony and surviving artifacts suggest this was indeed a common improvised habit, especially among infantrymen who wanted to keep their spoon close, secure, and ready for use. 7 theories behind the spoon in the boot. Let's break down the possible reasons why soldiers place spoons in their boots, because it wasn't superstition, it was survival. Convenience and accessibility. In the middle of shellfire or after a 20-mile march, no one wanted to dig through a pack to find a spoon. Meals were brief and unpredictable. You ate when you could. Keeping the spoon tucked into the putty or boot made it instantly accessible. No fumbling, no searching. A soldier could pull it out in seconds and start eating. Multi-purpose tool. The trench spoon was far from delicate. It doubled as a scraper, a stirrer, even a small digging tool. You could scoop dirt, scrape grime from your gear, or dig a tiny drainage trench around your dugout. When you live surrounded by mud, your spoon becomes your Swiss Army knife. Identification and personalization. Many soldiers scratched their initials or service numbers onto their spoons. In the confusion of war, spoons often outlasted everything else. Some were used to identify the fallen when dog tags were lost or destroyed. Carrying your spoon in your boot, close to you, ensured it was less likely to be misplaced. It became as personal as a wedding ring or family photo. Hygiene and protection. In trenches crawling with mud and rats, hygiene was nearly impossible. Leaving a spoon in your mess tin or pocket meant it could get filthy. Keeping it tucked in your boot, covered by your putty, might actually have been cleaner, at least relatively. It stayed dry and out of sight, ready for the next meal. Shortages and improvisation. Cutlery was not always readily available. Replacements were rare, and soldiers often scavenged or traded for essentials. Losing your spoon meant eating with your fingers or borrowing one, which wasn't always an option. Improvisation became an art form. So, soldiers found the most secure place possible to store their most used tool, and that happened to be inside their own boot. Boot maintenance and symbolism. Boots were a soldier's lifeline. If your feet failed, you were finished. They were checked daily, cleaned when possible, and wrapped with putties to keep mud out. By keeping their spoon tucked into their boot, soldiers symbolically and practically linked the act of eating and marching. Both meant survival. Both depended on routine. The putty pocket theory. The cloth leg wrapping known as a putty spiraled around the leg from ankle to knee. It created a tight, firm wrap, but also a few narrow folds. Soldiers quickly discovered they could slip small objects, like spoons or pencils, into those folds. This way, the spoon was held firmly, didn't rattle, and could be retrieved easily. It's simple, it's ingenious, and it's exactly the kind of field adaptation soldiers became famous for. What it reveals about soldiers' lives. The story of the spoon in the boot might sound like a minor curiosity, but it actually reveals deep truths about the psychology and daily life of the men who fought the Great War. 1. It shows adaptability under pressure. When faced with harsh conditions, soldiers didn't wait for new orders or new equipment. They improvised. 2. It illustrates the value of small comforts. In a world stripped of luxury, a simple meal eaten with your own spoon could feel like a moment of normalcy, a reminder of home. 3. It highlights the intimate relationship between soldiers and gear. Each item carried emotional weight. The same spoon that stirred a soldier's tea might have helped him dig a trench or scrape his boots clean. 4. It reflects routine and discipline. Maintaining small rituals, cleaning boots, checking socks, eating meals, helped preserve sanity. The spoon, tucked safely in the boot, was part of that ritual. Thousands of soldiers went to the front with little more than their rifles, their boots, and their spoons. Many never returned. But in the relics left behind, a dented mess tin, a ground-down spoon, initials carved into steel, we find quite proof of their humanity. Small object, big story. So, why did World War I soldiers place spoons in their boots? Because in a war that stripped men of comfort and certainty, a spoon was more than a utensil. It was a tool, an identity, and a survival companion. It was practicality, necessity, and symbolism, all rolled into one small piece of metal. Next time you see a photograph of a trench soldier, look closely. That small shape tucked into his boot or wrapped in his putty might just be his spoon, his lifeline, and his story. If you enjoyed this deep dive into forgotten details of war history, hit like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below.